I think during COVID it was hard for us to understand the scope of the changes that we are about to see come across our world. Welcome to the Bible in the News this week. This is Tim Billington joining you. We've seen culture wars in society around us, and they're only heating up. We're seeing resurgence of religion. Young people are believing in God more than they did before. The woke left is not only getting worse, but turning violent. This week we see the Anglican Church split, and the figurehead of the Anglican Church, King Charles, is heading to Rome to pray with the Pope. So let's consider for a second the split in the Anglican Church. I think this is significant because since the Act of Settlement, when the king separated England from the Vatican, England and the Church of England has in a way been a figurehead of Protestantism. Indeed, it was King Henry that authorized the authorized version of the Bible. So for this figurehead of Protestantism, in a way, to be heading to Rome to pray with the Pope is, in a way, ludicrous. When would this ever happen? The original bastion, then, of traditional Protestantism is crumbling. The King of England is joining with the other rulers of the earth, the kings of the earth, to commit spiritual fornication, as it's called in Revelation, with the Pope in Rome. Here he is, landing in Rome with the Queen, going to visit the Pope. This was the Act of Settlement from 1701. Here's a quote from it. "And it was thereby further enacted, that all and every person and persons that then were, or hereafterwards should be reconciled to, or shall hold communion with the See or Church of Rome, should profess the Popish religion, or marry a Papist, should be excluded, and are by that act made forever incapable to inherit, possess, or enjoy the crown and government of this realm, and Ireland, and the dominions thereunto belonging, or any part of the same, or to have, use, or exercise any regal power, authority, or jurisdiction within the same," and so it goes on. So what King Charles is doing is very, very close to what is forbidden by the Act of Settlement. Another piece from the time, the preface to the King James Version of the Bible. It starts off, "To the most high and mighty Prince James, by the grace of God, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith." And then further down inside, "So that if on the one side we shall be traduced by popish persons at home or abroad, who therefore will malign us, because we are poor instruments to make God's holy truth yet more and more known unto the people, whom they desire still to keep in ignorance and darkness." So this is what it was all about. Would the Bible be available for people to read for themselves and understand its truth, or would it be held back and concealed by Rome? And here's our quote from Revelation chapter 18, verse 3, "For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies." So that's what was prophesied. All nations would drink of her wine, of her teaching, of her influence. And so the result then is that at the time of the end, we see this picture of her, Revelation chapter 18, verse 7. "How much she hath glorified herself, and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow." So just before her torment and sorrow comes, before her judgment comes and she's finished, this is the position that she's in. She thinks she is invincible and in a position of great power in the earth. And then there is the frog-like spirit, that great spirit of madness that fills the age. And the reason I say it's a spirit of madness is because it's a demoniacal spirit. And if you look at what that word means and how it's used in the Bible, it links back to mental illness and people like Legion, who had a mental disease that prohibited him from thinking clearly. And he said, "My name is Legion, for we are many." So he was a mentally ill person that the Lord healed, but he was described as possessing a demon. So if society is possessed by this kind of spirit of madness, it is a mentally ill society. And what we see out of that is it gathers them to the Battle of Armageddon. And if we look at the spirit of those who are backing the completely crazy Muslims who are against everything that these people would otherwise stand for, backing them and opposing Israel, who is really supporting things that they profess to support, it really is complete madness. But it's not all doom and gloom, because we see that there are those at the end who are opposing. All nations are gathered, it says, but we see there's a split. There's nations that are there that are not opposed to Israel, but rather they're opposed to this alliance of nations that's coming down against. And that, I say protest, but it really is quite feeble, because there's no indication that they actually do anything to support Israel and to stand in the way of the invading armies. Whether that is because they're unwilling or unable, we're not told. But in Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 13, it says, Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? So they look at them and they question what they're doing. They oppose this action. So that has to mean then that not everybody is taken away by this spirit of the age. And indeed, after the battle, we're told about people that come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles in Jerusalem. Zechariah chapter 14 verse 16, It shall come to pass that every one that is left of the nations which come against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, Jehovah of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So there is this these people who actually come up and respond to the call and keep the Feast of Tabernacles in Jerusalem. So we see down through time that God causes separation between light and dark. And we see this at the beginning in creation in Genesis chapter 1. We saw it with Noah when he separated Noah's family out from the rest of the earth. Abraham was separated out of what was Babylon at his time, from Ur of the Chaldees. Lot was separated out from Sodom. Israel was taken out of Egypt, and only a remnant really was saved because the generation died off in the wilderness. Israel's various exiles, there's been a remnant that has returned that's more faithful than the ones who the land vomited out, really, because of their sins. And there's been various fleeing from Roman persecution that has separated people out. So we mentioned the Church of England, and we're actually seeing a major split in the Anglican Church. Those who follow along with the crazy wokeness, as they are backing that kind of behavior in various ways. We're seeing conservative Anglican churches who are separating themselves from that and saying, we will have no part of it. They're saying we need to stick to the original biblical position that we had. How biblical they really were, that's subject for another time, but they're separating from the complete slide into the spirit of the age that's drawing people against God. And I mentioned about COVID. If we look at graphs like this one here, this is England, and this is the younger portion of the population, people who are 18 to 24. And what you see is starting kind of during that lockdown period and shortly after it, that the number of people that profess that they believe in God is really going quite far up. If you look back on that, back to like, say, 2019 at the beginning, that's, I don't know what that is, it's less than 25% of that young portion of the population are saying that they believe in God. But if we go forward to today and a little bit earlier this year, we were getting to almost double that amount. So that's quite a significant rise. If we go further down in this article, it points out that there's what it calls a quiet revival of Christians. The blue part that I highlighted there, the Bible Society found earlier this year that 16% of 18 to 24-year-olds were monthly churchgoers, up from just 4% in 2018. So in 2018, that's an extremely small minority of people who actually attended church in that age group, 4%. So that 4% has gone 4 times that to 16% of young people that are now attending. 16% might not sound like a lot, but that's quite a steep rise to where it was. And when we move to the United States, these numbers are very much larger. Here's a headline: New research, belief in Jesus rises, fueled by younger adults. And they have a graph. And again, we can see that the younger generations, that's a steep increase, that we're getting up to 70% of young males are saying, I have made a personal commitment to follow Jesus that is still important in my life today. So that's their profession of faith. They have a belief in Jesus and follow whatever form of Christianity. So the United States is a far more religious place. If we take that back, like 70% now in the United States to 4% in Britain. That's kind of up to 16 now, but that's still far behind what it is in the United States. And this has been jumping up even more since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Charlie was seen as a person that embodied what an evangelical Christian should look like. He preached what he believed from his heart to young people. And his death seems to have sparked a massive resurgence in Christianity in the U.S. and beyond. And his organization, Turning Point USA, is growing massively. And before this, it was credited with helping Donald Trump win the youth vote in the United States. They promote faith, family, and freedom. They're very pro-Israel. And he actually even kept a Sabbath day. So he's a very religious and Christian person. And the effect of his assassination is he's seen as like a martyr for Christians and for Christianity. It's sparking thousands of people to come to religion. Even I've come across Jews saying, I now keep Shabbat because of Charlie Kirk, in honor of Charlie Kirk. So it's even turning Jewish people to their religion. This article here says the Charlie Kirk effect is real. Thousands are coming to faith in Jesus. Here's a quote from inside that article. The so-called Charlie Kirk effect is real. Reports are pouring in from across the United States of churches experiencing sudden dramatic growth and record numbers of baptisms. There's one that I saw, the person said that they had 513 new converts on the Sunday after Charlie Kirk's assassination. And it goes on, it's not confined to America. Thanks to live streams, TikTok clips, and word of mouth, British people of all walks of life are also asking big questions. The Telegraph has run a piece claiming Charlie Kirk's evangelical uprising is taking root in Britain. So as we look then and say, how is there people left that oppose the aligning of the nations against Israel and are ready to come up and keep the Feast of Tabernacles after and heed the call? They have enough belief left to actually respond. Well, we look, and it's not all bad news. So, in conclusion then, when we read in Revelation chapter 14 that there is this angel that goes out with the everlasting gospel to preach, it says, let's read this together. Revelation chapter 14, verse 6. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and sea and the fountains of waters. What a relevant message for our atheistic world. Verse 8, And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So there's the contrast, those that will respond, those that heed that gospel message call, and those that drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So we echo the words of Revelation 22, verse 20. He which testifieth these things saith, Surely I come quickly. Amen. Even so come, Lord Jesus.